Joining us now, Congressman Jim Himes, Democrat of Connecticut. Congressman Himes, I want to go through those 4 points, if you don't mind, one by one. Let's begin with number one. The call record shows that there was no conditionality at all.
Yeah, Lawrence, that's just not the case. I mean, you can go read the transcript, and what you'll see is that when the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, is talking about we're ready to buy some new javelins, we really appreciate the help, we're ready to go with military aid, the very next thing President Trump says is, yeah, we want you to do us a favor, though. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to see those two things connected. And oh, by the way, the way these things work, it's not like these things are put down into contract, like unless you do this, clause 1, I won't do this for you, clause 2. But, the transcript shows the quid pro quo. Ambassador Sondland says there was a quid pro quo, and every other piece of evidence out there, including everyone in the United States government not understanding why military aid was being held up, demonstrates that there was a quid pro quo there.
All right. And number two is there was no pressure on President Zelensky.
Well, again, they're building their case on the fact that President Zelensky is saying publicly that he didn't experience pressure. In domestic abuse, quite often the victim of domestic abuse is not willing to say that they are being abused because they are afraid, because they are negotiating for all kinds of reasons. Ukraine needs the United States president, needs United States aid. Had Zelensky come out and said, yes, I felt pressure, you can bet that everything that he needs for his country in the fight against Russia would be in jeopardy. So, again, relying on what Zelensky, who is the victim here, says is not sufficient to say there wasn't pressure here. Of course there was pressure.
And then his defense point number 3 is the Ukrainians and Zelensky did not know about the hold on the aid, the blocking of the aid at the time of that phone call.
Yeah. So, again, I heard you say earlier, Lawrence, that Mitch McConnell doesn't want to call witnesses. I have a different theory about why that is. And that is because every single witness called by the House, every single email that we were provided, not, of course, by the White House or by any of the executive branch agencies, but by people like Ambassador Sondland and Ambassador Volker, every single email showed the quid pro quo, showed the dirtiness of this. So, of course, Mitch McConnell doesn't want more evidence presented in the Senate. And that, of course, is what's going on in that sort of absurd third defense. We heard from an official at the Department of Defense, and this was one of those sort of blockbuster moments, that upon polling her staff, there were instances of the Ukrainians in July calling up and saying, hey, what's going on with this aid? We're worried about this aid. So, yes, they did know.
And then his final point, number 4, no investigations were announced and the aid was released.
Right. That's the beauty, right? So remember when the aid is released. The aid is released on September 11th. When the White House has known for a full week and a half about, probably 2 weeks, about the whistleblower complaint, and it is clear that Congress is going to launch an investigation. So, yeah, let's give them credit for that. When the bank robber heard the sirens and the police running up the stairs to the bank that was being robbed, the bank robber put down the money. That is not exculpatory.
Congressman Himes, what do we know about who if this does go to a trial in the Senate, who the House managers will be, since the evidence was developed by the Intelligence Committee? Normally, House managers in an impeachment trial are from the Judiciary Committee. Will there be some Intelligence Committee participation in the impeachment trial?
Yeah, good question. And there's plenty of speculation in this building about that. I don't think anybody knows. It's not clear to me necessarily that the Speaker has actually chosen who the managers will be. I think in the Clinton impeachment, I've been told there were, roughly a dozen, maybe just over a dozen managers. That obviously is a number that allows you to bring people both from the Judiciary Committee, from the Intelligence Committee, maybe from the Oversight Committee, which has been pretty actively involved. So, again, unknown, but I imagine we'll learn that within the next couple of days.
Congressman Jim Himes, thank you very much for joining us on this important night. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lawrence.
And when we come back, in the